All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. I'm your host, DBQ Hams. This is episode 235 that we've been churning along over the past few years here. This is for the week of March 31st, almost on April Fool's Day, depending on what part of the country and the world you are in, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I will tell you, I remember the first time I got tricked by EGM's April Fool's jokes. Driving home, riding in the backseat of a parent's car, reading the newest EGM, and learning about Comeau and the shadow person who, if you knew how to do just the right moves, and it was all a ruse. So, actually, that whole trend, fortunately, has kind of died off. It peaked way, the mid-2000s was, you couldn't go anywhere on the internet without some type of April Fool's joke. But fortunately, we are here tonight, not as an April Fool's joke, but as serious content and discussion. Joining me tonight for this discussion is Towmaster99. Tow, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, and I didn't even realize it was about to be April 1st, so gotta watch those news feeds tomorrow.
That's right. This is what happens when it becomes the end of March. It is also the beginning of April.
Yeah.
So my kindergarten teacher would be very proud of me right now that I knew the months right afterwards. So, and also manning the wheels of steel, Game Logic. How are you, sir? Almost manning them, trying to move too many parts at once. Here he comes.
I'm trying not to knock coffee all over this workstation here, swinging the mic into place. I'm good. It shows you just how important it was for Sony to get their PlayStation Plus news out of the way before the impending holiday tomorrow. That would have been very bad to make your PlayStation Plus announcement on April Fool's Day.
On April Fool's. Well, we'll talk about that PlayStation Plus announcements and the tiers and everything else around it and how much of an April Fool's joke it is and how serious it can be. So tonight, as we always do, we have what we've been playing mixed in with some news stories. We've got a few new releases, but it's the end of the month, which also means it's time for us as gaming parents to turn in our gaming assignments. Every month we give ourselves a Pix Play assignment, and tonight is our report out. So we'll find out if everybody's done their homework tonight. And then finally, we'll catch a little round robin in terms of what else we've been playing and where that takes us within the news. So I'm actually going to start off with two newish games. One's more newer than the other. First game is Who Pressed Mute on Uncle Marcus? So I'm just looking at Game Logic's face here, but this is a Wales Interactive. This is a full motion video game. This is, it could work really well as I can't believe that Netflix doesn't do more of these or do these at all, because it is a series of talking heads. It was definitely shot during the pandemic and COVID. You are on a family Zoom call, more or less, for a quiz game that your family holds once a week, and someone has poisoned your uncle, or have they? And your job is to kind of slyly ask questions and probe your other family members in between the game to see if you can gain some information and figure out what poison was used on Uncle Marcus and what antidote to give him, or that he should take, because miraculously his doctors have narrowed it down to 3 different poisons. But actually, it's very cheesy, as all full motion video games should be, but it's actually kind of fun. I got a bad ending right away, because what happens is, as you're interviewing people, as you're talking to people, sometimes you can reveal all of their information. It'll tell you you've revealed 100%. Sometimes, depending on the questions you ask, you may not get them to open up as much. So you have most of them are binary choices. So what it ends up happening is, if you finish it and you don't get a conclusion, you don't get you don't solve the mystery, you can start back over and keep all the evidence. You have only a few opportunities to ask questions, and you have more family members than you have opportunities to ask questions of. So you have to kind of pick and choose. Maybe you chose, so then you would go back through and choose some different people or try to answer questions differently. It's got some streaming options built in that you can shut off the timer on being able to answer so that you can play with your audience and have them choose as well. But it's kind of fun. I've played Wales Interactive has done a number of these. They did Blood, which was kind of like an action movie one, which came out earlier this year. Last year I played a demo during Xbox's E3 for, what was it called? It was almost like it was a dungeon one. It was like Dragon's Lair. Death Trap Dungeon, the Golden Room, which was very Dragon's Lair like, of you made the wrong choice and somebody slashed you or a gate of spikes dropped on you. But so yeah, it's kind of fun. Played it with some family members in the room. It was kind of a fun little party game. The other Land, my son and I played a little bit of that. Got through the first 2 worlds of that. I played the demo a couple weeks ago. Played through that. It's Kirby in 3D-ish. It's not full 3D. It's not Mario Odyssey type of. It is 3D. It is not kind of open world 3D. It is still pretty much linear levels, but there are some hidden paths. There's some multiple ways to go through. And as you're going through, your objectives are pretty much to rescue some Waddle Dees, the little side characters in Kirby. But some of those you get from finding hidden areas. Some of those you get from finding the boss. But then as you finish the level, you're also kind of told or you're given that there are some hidden Waddle Dees around the world in terms of doing certain objectives, finishing a level without, using a certain power, or beating a boss without taking any damage, or within a certain period of time, or collecting all of something within a level. And so it gives you some incentive to go back through those levels and collect more Waddle Dees. And as you collect Waddle Dees, you have kind of a town hub that they unlock other kind of mini games in a standard Kirby style. They unlock other features within that kind of central place. Then along the map, there's also they're challenge portals, basically, that they are single player pieces that you have kind of a target time to get to, and each challenge portal has a power associated with it. So sometimes that's normal Kirby, sometimes it's his classic ice or sword or flame, sometimes it's some of the newer abilities like the swallowing up a soda can machine or a flight of stairs. And going through those puzzle pieces, and those unlock stars, and the stars are used to upgrade those powers. So each power has kind of an evolution to it, that you have kind of the basic Kirby, like the basic Kirby sword can be upgraded to be a big Viking sword that has a block and a super smash. The Kirby flame attack can be upgraded to a volcanic attack, which does area effect and a series of damage around it. And so there's kind of a lot more to it than I expected. Like, moving through the world is not super hard. Kind of the more challenging mode, which is not necessarily challenging, but it's not a cakewalk in terms of a Kirby game. The regular levels are relatively fine. The challenge becomes in some of those bosses and taking them down within certain periods of time, or with using powers that are not ideal to attacking, or not using any powers at all to take down a boss. So I'm really enjoying it. Looks really good, both on the TV and in handheld. So the multiplayer piece is that you end up playing, the second player plays as a Waddle Dee with a spear. You don't have free movement, kind of like Lego Star Wars style, where the screen splits off into 2. You are kind of transported back to the main character, similar to like 3D World, Super Mario 3D World, where if you got too far away, it would kind of put you in a bubble and bring you on back. And it does similar things here. So that's Kirby. it's you kind of know what you're going to get if you like that. It's charming, it's bright, it's colorful. It's a palate cleanser in terms of a game. It's nice. So I'm enjoying it more than I enjoyed Star Allies or the previous one on Switch, which is very much just kind of a standard Kirby game. Tao, you've also been playing something new, not necessarily a new game, but on a little bit of a new piece of hardware. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I wanted to bend the rules as we like to do here on E2KG. So I got some new hardware. I got a Razer Kishi, which I believe is how you say it. At least that's what the internet told me how to say it. So it's a little mobile device. It's a handheld controller. I forgot to bring it with me today too. My mind's blank today. I don't know what's going on this week. But so normally it's kind of like collapsed in, and it looks like kind of a shrunken like Xbox or Nintendo controller, like Pro Controller, and then you can extend it out, and obviously, and you can snap it into your phone. This one works with the Razer. I'm sorry, with Razer. This one works with Android phones and maybe iPhones. I'm not, probably not though, because I think it's a USB-C connection. I believe iPhones don't use USB-C, as far as I know, at least not yet. So any kind of Android phone it'll be able to be used. I was going to get the Backbone, but I guess that's only iPhone, because I heard a lot of good things about that one. A couple of podcasts, or one podcast I listened to, they were talking about it. I was like, oh, cool. But unfortunately, it's only iPhone, so I got the Razer instead, and it works fine. The only thing I kind of don't like about it is the trigger. Well, it's a couple things. The trigger buttons are kind of like on like an Xbox controller, they're kind of angled down a little bit. Here is kind of straight on, so it's a little bit uncomfortable to kind of hold it sometimes. I'm starting to get used to it a little bit, but I think I just gotta play it a little bit more, and it'll be fine. And then the buttons themselves, like the triggers, and even like the face buttons, they're kind of squishy. They're not clicky, which kind of annoys me, but I mean that's not a deal breaker either. I think the triggers is the worst thing about it, just because it just feels weird, just because I'm used to the Xbox controllers, and even the Pro controller has more clicky thing. But I've played a few things on it. I'm just going to talk about one right now, because we'll talk about this kind of goes into our picks plays later. But Origami, I think that's how you say that, 2 through xCloud. So I was playing that on my phone, and I never played the first one. I wanted to play the first one, but unfortunately that's not on. I don't know if it's not on Game Pass, or at least not on the cloud version right now. So I just jumped into 2 for now. Kind of a like Tenchu. I don't know if you've ever. I think you've played it before, haven't you, DB? I thought you had mentioned it.
No, I don't think so. I know that
Okay.
the first one is on regular Game Pass, just not on
Okay.
probably cloud at this point. But I think it's actually leaving. The original is leaving Game Pass. This one is the one that came out last August, correct?
Yeah, maybe it was Swiss. Then maybe he had tried it, or so. I thought one of you guys had tried it. But yeah,
It sounds like it might be a Swiss game. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a Tenchu. Like if you remember that game back on was it PlayStation, I think when I played on it 2 or so.
It was PlayStation 1 is when it started, I think. But yeah,
was it 1? Okay, yeah. So you're like a ninja, you kind of sneak around a little bit. You can go like just jump into action if you want to, but people are just going to be coming at you, so you kind of want to do the stealth thing a little bit more. And there's some, when you're in like shadows and stuff, you kind of get some extra powers that you can do. So, which is kind of cool. I've just kind of played through the tutorial so far, so unfortunately, I haven't played it too much. But it seems pretty cool. I like it. It plays fine. Like the control itself. I'm also some remote play through my my Xbox One X. I didn't set up the Series X yet. I'm not sure if I'll set up the Series X, because actually the One X I actually have plugged into my router, so obviously it's going to be a better connection. But I might set up both just to kind of compare the two. But yeah, so far it's I haven't had any issues with, other than what just kind of the annoyances I had with the actual controller itself. So it's actually pretty nice. Very portable. So like I said, you can collapse it back down. Once you're done with it, I'll just throw it in my backpack or something. So for my ed break, at lunch or something at work, maybe I can like just pop it on and when I get a chance, because I've been pretty busy lately. But it'd be a nice distraction to just pop that on my phone and play something. I did try to play the Origami at work, and it just I think it's just because of the connection. It was just like terrible. Like it was like
Sure.
if you went like super slow, like it would kind of be all right. And then as soon as I started try to run or just even walk, it would just like be super laggy. So I'll have to try something else. Maybe in just a different game that's not so fast, because that can be kind of a fast game once you get into combat and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. So I'll try to report more on that.
Nice. So that was the Razer Kishi for Android.
Yes. Razer Kishi, yeah.
Great. Well, before you jump off the mic, you've got a xCloud Microsoft news story here for us as well.
Yeah. So airing alongside the Game Developers Conference at GDC, Kim Swift, who was the lead designer of Portal, or one of the lead designers. I don't know if she was the lead, but so she's working with Microsoft now, and she's working under the Xbox Games Studios publishing division. And she was having like a conference, and she introduced the whole group, and then they actually have a cloud mandate now where they're going to have a new cloud, basically like a cloud gaming publishing division, kind of branching off the Xbox Game Studios division, and she's leading that. So, and I'm going to read here from the article from Rebecca Valentine on IGN.com. Quote, we're going to partner with world-class game development teams to develop cloud-native games to bring unprecedented experiences to players that can only be achieved with cloud technology. So, they're just going to be, developing basically cloud games, and this kind of goes along with Microsoft's new ID at Azure initiative, which aims to use a cloud system to open up game development, to more people out there, and anybody can use it. So, and then another thing I kind of like in the article is, and kind of quote, she says, the developers they're going to be making games with of any size, like could be indies or third party or first parties, whatever. But basically, they got to be comfortable with taking risks inherent in new technology space. So it's always nice to at least they're upfront with that. And, I mean, you kind of go into that problem obviously because it's it is a newish technology, at least on the game side, I suppose, the cloud technology. So we'll see how that goes. And that was pretty much like all the announcement. Like they didn't really go into details. They didn't say like who, if they have any developers that they're working with or anything like that. But I just thought it was kind of neat that they actually are making like a cloud gaming division or department, a group within the bigger group. So I thought that was kind of cool.
So you would think that this would be a replication of the same deal that they've made with Sega, which we understand to be about Sega moving their development environments to the cloud. So the cloud native reference is about not just running the games in the cloud and streaming, but it's about them actually doing the environment in the cloud rather than having them do the development in an on-premises network and then deploying that code to the cloud. So this, I'm hoping this leads to is we had a lot of source code compromises over the last year, many over the last 2 years. And so one of the things that should come along with this should be the enhanced security that can be provided from the cloud, offloading the team from those things. We saw a similar deal this week by Amazon announcing Amazon Web Services for cloud game development in partnership with a company called Globant. So it's very interesting that AWS announced, at the same thing, and then a day or two later, Microsoft made the announcement, which again is kind of, at least one thing that I believe in and agree with, that, Microsoft's competitors are much more so AWS and Google than Sony. So one of the things I'm hoping comes out of this is reduced schedule delays, right? Because what you're going to do is you're going to take a chunk of work that a development team has had to take care of themselves, right? All the tooling, all of the database replication, all of the security, all of these things that recurringly get done and handled by the cloud service provider now should now be things that the team doesn't have to worry about. So some percentage of what they normally have to do themselves in development pipeline should come out of that. You would like to think that means delivering games faster, but what software developers always do is when you remove part of the work that they have to do, they always fill that time right back up with them doing something else. So we're probably going to see at least some of the same cadence. Although if Sony has a similar deal going, with Azure that they haven't announced yet, then, where Jim Ryan has asked his primary studios, right, to increase their release cadence, we might see at least that group, start to put some things out at least slightly faster.
Thanks, Game Logic, for the analogy. I think it'll, as the Kim Swift piece makes it interesting from a game perspective, the Microsoft announcement makes it interesting from a development idea of cloud gaming and streaming, and a little later in our show when we talk about our picks plays. But let's do our picks plays report out in terms of our last assignment. So at the end of February, beginning of March, there were rumors flying around, some confirmed, some not so much, around Call of Duty taking 2023 off. We got the announcement of a third Pokemon. We are a day away from MLB The Show 22 being released. If you've pre-ordered it and paid for an upgraded edition, there are annual releases all the time. I have been playing plenty of some of them in terms of both sports and shooters. But so our assignment was, with all of these annual releases and the rumors around some things taking a time off, catching a breather, what's a series that should take a break? Or what's a series that took a break and came back inspired, even better than before? That we know Assassin's Creed came back and went in a different direction than what it was going. Whether or not that is better or worse depends on your preference. So we've got a number of options to go here with our assignment in terms of what series should take a break, what series should come back after taking a break, or what series took a break and turned out pretty well. So Game Logic, I'm going to put you up first here because I was actually kind of thinking about this after seeing the end credit of the story of Witch Queen and thinking about the next expansion and wondering what happens next. So I kind of tipped my hand in terms of what your pick is here, but I'll let you tell us why you think, why did you include Destiny 2 on this list?
Because it was one of the games that I played that is on some type of annual cadence release schedule. I mean, I don't really think that Destiny 2 should take a break. You could argue whether or not, and I'm not an expert at like the frequency with which, I mean, there's an argument or a discussion to be had about, what is a true, I guess I would still label it an expansion pack, kind of sort of for Destiny 2. Basically meaning that, every campaign released from them has not been of equivalent magnitude and import. There's some that are big and then there are some that are smaller. And then the question is, are they doing too many of the big ones? Are they doing not enough of the big ones? Should they do 4 big ones a year? Both with Destiny and Destiny 2, we seem to have had this big, almost kind of year-long lull where about a year-long lull, where the expansion packs have felt kind of non-consequential, right? And then we got the Taken King the first time around, and then we got, I guess, Forsaken the second time in for Destiny 2, and there was a feeling that both of those were kind of what people expect. So I mean, it's a question. I mean, and also we have to question the longevity of Destiny 2, right? I've made reference before that Destiny 2 is starting to get long in the tooth, but then I was reminded this week in some other conversations, like, yeah, but look at Warframe, right? Which is a very similar kind of motif. Destiny 2 feels like a higher fidelity combat model than Warframe is, but Warframe's been going on forever and is showing no signs of slowing down and has modernized for the next generation consoles. And I don't know that it looks a little behind the times in comparison to a Destiny 2, but I don't know that it looks, the modernization was a huge help, right, in bringing into parity with, other games that are kind of this generation. So,
well, wasn't the?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, didn't they, like, the original plan for Destiny? Didn't they say it was going to be like they had like a 10-year plan for it or something?
10-year plan, right? I think it was a 10-year plan. That's what they announced. That's what they got raked over the coals for in terms of who's planning a game for 10 years, and the next expansion will be in 2023, which is 9 years from when they started. So yeah, they're on target to hit that 10-year mark, and what comes afterward will be interesting in terms of, and they are setting up the story in such a way that there could be a little harder of a reset after the next expansion. As you were talking game logic in terms of the different expansion cadences that they've done, really since Forsaken, they've moved away from the multiple expansions over the course of the year. It was really that first year with the launch of Destiny 2 and then the Osiris one on Mercury and the Rasputin one on Mars, the Warmind one, which was actually Vicarious Visions, was most of it. Since then, they've been in kind of this annual, here's our expansion, and then we have season passes for 3 months at a time, which gives some content, gives some treadmill to keep going on. And I think that's kind of happened since they separated from Activision. Do you feel that that's, I mean, I think within the Destiny community, there's definitely questions of if that's enough to keep people engaged. Bungie over time has talked about that it's okay for people to kind of ebb and flow, that, that they're okay with that because they know people come back when there's something new. Do you feel like things are getting played out or stale? I mean, or are you you've dove back in here with Witch Queen. Are you feeling like it's scratching that same itch that it did for the last 4 years?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely one of those people, right, who kind of ebb and flow. Like I kind of was only tepidly into it for, I guess I played the Osiris expansion, but I kind of just like dipped and dabbed the Warmind expansion. So, and then I came back kind of for Forsaken. Now, we say they only do one expansion per year, but didn't they do? I mean, it feels like it's an expansion and a half, right? Was it New Light, like some new adventures and new content there? And not everybody went back and played that, but it was there.
New Light had a new introduction.
Okay,
so right. You could restart. You do a few new-ish missions or kind of positioning of the original missions. But then, there were some initial bounties and public events that you would do that would kind of introduce you to the different systems. So not a whole lot of new content there with New Light, but enough to kind of revamp the intro. Kind of like what I was talking about with GTA Online when they just released the PlayStation 5, Xbox patch, that they've kind of reconfigured their onboarding process.
Right, and the impact of that though was that some of the traditional storylines that we had kind of become accustomed to kind of got a little tilted, which you would get in little blurbs here and there that were like, oh, that's not how I remember. That's like a shift from the norm. And then of course there was Beyond Light. So I mean, I've been satisfied. Again, I've made reference before how and I get it. We've commented many times before that we don't play games in the same way that many other gamers do, where they just kind of run this circuit right between Call of Duty, Destiny 2, Valor, right? So, the people who have dumped 1,000 hours into Destiny and then at hour 1,001 say, I'm bored, this game's trash, and the developers aren't delivering me enough, I'm like, maybe go outside. Or maybe go play something else. So I've been satisfied and fine. It's interesting and it's something I have to contemplate, right? But in the past models, when MMOs were monthly subscriptions, right? I didn't like doing MMOs because I would always feel obligated that I had to play X number of hours in a month, right? If I was going to pay a monthly subscription. And so I have been happy in this transition to, an expansion pack cost, right? And season passes, because that gives you the freedom to decide that you want to participate or not participate. But, it's a question of whether or not you still feel kind of obligated to keep the train going, right? And I have it. So, but I'm always, tempted, and there's always just the tiniest bit of FOMO, when I feel like I am not keeping up, right? So Sorry, I gotta get rid of somebody here in chat. So actually, just give me one more second.
No problem. Yeah, I think the reason I was thinking about this on the list is, I mean, they have continued to evolve it and modify structures and systems, and they're in the process of going through subclasses here with Void and kind of doing Void 3.0 and kind of rolling out each season another one of those subclasses. It has the potential to keep going, right? I mean, that has the potential to be that MMO like type of piece without having to feel like you're paying that monthly subscription. The other pieces eventually, and this is where your Warframe reference does make sense. Like, eventually, it's the tech that it's built upon starts to get more and more long in the tooth. Like, what do they need to do to keep this, or do they need to keep it? And I think in some ways, it being a higher end fidelity product than, I mean, Warframe is pretty good looking, but it also is a little more resource constrained initially, right? Like it isn't trying to. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
And you can feel the airiness in the models, right? The Destiny 2 character models have more weight. And it feels like the physics model behind it is a little more, is a little more robust. The thing about Destiny 2 and its longevity is, again, like I mentioned like a few weeks ago when we were talking about, right, it just feels weird to me that we haven't introduced a new class, not just new subclasses, right? And that we haven't introduced a truly original new race, right? We've done, modifications and branches of the other one. So it just seems like that would be some of what they would mix in. But other than that, at the end of the day, you guys are probably getting tired of hearing me say this, for the last several years. Again, I'm fine being a galactic space cop and just getting in my ship and going, and patrolling planets and investigating crimes. I think what's really interesting about Witch Queen, which I haven't finished yet, one of the things I've always commented about the Marvel movies is I've always been impressed that the Marvel movies, when they're done with care, what's good about them is that they are a regular movie that you could strip all the superhero stuff away from, and you would still have a good movie, right? Captain America: Winter Soldier is a great spy movie. The Ant-Man movies are great heist movies, and so the Witch Queen is painted in this tapestry of being kind of a detective story, right? And so it would be interesting to see if they kind of go with that motif a couple of times around, and have a slightly more anchored story kind of around like all of the sci-fi stuff. So, but from a graphics perspective, I mean, I'm hard pressed to think of another space age shooter that looks better than Destiny 2, like way better. I mean, you could argue that there are some other that look a little better, maybe. But I feel like Destiny 2 has been keeping up. So, and they've done graphical enhancements along the way. They've, added, higher resolution textures and whatnot. So it seems like it's to keep going.
I sink hours in every week. And so you also have a news story here around Destiny 2, which I think ties into your Avengers comment and also thinks about maybe what comes next. So you want to take us through your news story there, Game Logic?
Yeah, before I do, I'll just make one comment because we talked a lot about Destiny 2, but I didn't actually talk about my experience playing the game. I will say, so what I've been doing specifically this week is I've been playing my Hunter since I've started runs playing my Titan and Warlock. I keep wanting to say Titanfall, but when I started my Titan and Warlock. And this time, the one thing that I did different is, and I'm sure you know, DB, because you've played it, there's kind of the main Witch Queen path, but then there's this branch, right, for you to take the spear and go do some missions for Queen Kaidal, which I hadn't done because I was like, no, I just need to burn through the path. But with this character, I decided to take the branch, so it's slightly filling out the story. I guess Marasov's brother has been, I don't know, reincarnated, resurrected, whatever, memory wiped.
Yes, he's now a guardian.
Yes, so
the Crow is now a guardian.
Right.
Yes.
So you run into him. I'm not sure if you. Did you take that branch, by the way? Or am I spoiling it for you?
No, it's okay. I mean, I haven't finished it, so, but Keep going. I knew Crow was in it, so I mean that was all part of it.
So there are allusions to like you might work with him, more closely in the future. There's a big exchange. There's a very lengthy exchange when you go up to a console. You can hear a playback of a very lengthy exchange between Lord Saladin and Zavala, and it seems to hint that Sav is going to figure into the story more prominently further on. So. But that was pretty neat, taking that little side branch. The news story that DB is talking about is Destiny 2 Lightfall could be an Infinity War-like event. So this story up on Screen Rant by Zaid Deus, or Deuce, I'm not sure. And I quote, Destiny 2 has been gearing up for its next main event, Lightfall, which is set to be the conclusion to the current Light versus Darkness arc series that the series has been... Some typos in this article. The series has been telling for the past few years, and it could potentially be similar in scale to the MCU's Avengers Infinity War. After multiple teases, the main villains of the Destiny universe, the Darkness, are finally coming back to Earth to finish the job they started. Destiny 2 Witch Queen introduced the Witness, who seems to be the leader of the Darkness. Lightfall seems very foreboding, as according to in-game lore and dialogue, it could see the end of the Traveler and quite possibly the Light. One of the... What's the thing I was going to mention? Just brain dropped it for some reason. I don't know. So, I mean, at any rate, this will be the spool up to the finale of the story. DB, you said this is supposed to come out in 2023?
2023 is the plan for Lightfall. And yes, looking at the end of kind of the main campaign piece of Witch Queen certainly sets up this battle. And
right.
It opens it up in lots of ways. Over the last few seasons, you've had the Elixni be kind of side with the Guardians. So the Fallen, a branch of them have sided with the Guardians. Now you have a branch of the Hive that have been trying to protect, in their own weird Hive logic type of way, the Guardian as well. So you could actually end up with, this is where there could be this kind of all-inclusive piece, which could potentially lead to in whatever comes next after 2023, you could end up with different some additional races that were once enemies as well.
Yeah, and in that branch, you actually work with side by side with the Cabal as well.
Yes.
So I wonder, this article talks about Infinity War, but what springs to my mind is that what we may be heading for is a battle of the five armies. So kind of that was at the set piece at the end of, or near the end of the Hobbit?
Return of the King. Yeah. No, of the Hobbit, right? Yes, yeah. Where everybody comes back in. Yep. Yeah.
So it could be
all right. Well, so let's go from space epic opera to gridiron football. So, Tao, you've been playing some Madden 22. I'm guessing through Game Pass. I can see how this could be on the list of maybe it should take a year off, especially as somebody who's playing a franchise right now. And when you exit a game in the franchise and you head back to your other screen, there is a moment after it shows you all your stats and things like that, that you get a pop-up of a screen from Madden 21, which then suddenly blacks over, and then you move on to the next screen. Like,
nice.
You don't see that anyplace else, but it's there in the transition. And so at first I thought, was I missing something? And then as I read about it online, no, it's just there. And it's this, this is what happens when this is on the current gen, right? It doesn't happen as much on the previous gen. It happens on the current gen. It does not, right? The PlayStation 5, Xbox Series gen. So what are you playing it on, and why did it make your list?
Yeah. So I'm playing it on Series X. And I made my list because I know it's never going to happen. Like, they're never going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to take a year off here in Madden. But I mean, this is one of those things that, once again, I've mentioned this before. I think we all have mentioned this. Everywhere on the internet has mentioned, like, this should be just like an not annualized, but like a subscription service, like where you just you're getting team rosters constantly updated, which they kind of do now. But I mean, they release like a new game like every year. When they do that, like, I don't know what the point is. Like, and of all the companies, the
point is box copy sell, right?
Well, yeah, but out of all the companies, like, I figured EA would somehow try to subscriptionize. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm making it a word. Subscriptionize this game franchise. And yeah, I guess you're right. Do you want to do $10.99 or $9.99 or $14.99 subscription service a year or every month or whatever, however they do it, or do you want to do like a $60, like boom every year? So I mean, it makes sense, I suppose, but I'm sure they're probably trying to hopefully maybe look at that. But just when I'm playing it, like when I played, so I played this one, and when EA Play first came to Game Pass, they had 20 on there because this was last year at the time, and 21 wasn't released yet, 21 wasn't released yet. So I was playing 20 Madden 20, and I was playing a few games of that. I go to this. I played a few games of this, a bunch of games, actually, not more than a few. And I was like, to me, graphically and just like the gameplay, looked the same. Like I didn't really see a difference. Like maybe the menus, menus are a little bit different here and there, but I mean overall, like graphically, like I mean I don't know until it gets like photorealistic, like Uncanny Valley, past Uncanny Valley. Like I don't know what else they can do graphically, to these games. Like and then. Like you're probably talking about.
Are you playing the Xbox One version, or are you playing the Series version?
I'm playing. What? I think I'm playing the Xbox One version because I'm not. Okay. I didn't have room on my my internal hard drive.
The reason I ask is that the Series versions have a whole different physics model, and I would agree with you as somebody who's played these annually. That yes, 20 and 22, 21. They are the same engine. There's a few differences if we really want to get into the granularity of what's there. Yeah. But in terms of general how they feel, yeah, they feel pretty much the same.
Yeah. So I mean that was my thinking. Now I don't know with your pick if you're going the same route or if you're going the opposite way, because I know they did take. I think they've taken a couple years off here and there actually for NBA Live.
When you pay for EA Play, do you just get Madden along with the subscription?
So if you do a subscription to EA Play, you get the previous year's Madden. You don't get the current year's Madden until usually like the week or two after the Super Bowl. They stagger out what their current year franchises are and when they come up to EA Play. So it's, unless you're paying for the top tier model, like at one point there was like EA Play Pro, which still exists as like $100 a month. And then it is day one of all their stuff in addition to their back catalog that's on there. But if you're just paying the $30 a year EA Play one, you're getting the last year's version until X amount of time.
Seems like maybe what they will do is slide that, Madden, FIFA, and all that stuff down into a tier that's maybe a little less expensive. If that pro tier, if that premium tier, it seems like I remember it was called like EA Play Pro Premium or some weird.
I think it was EA Play Premium. Maybe I was it for a year. I think I'm also curious on how it's only on PC. I think is where it is. So that also changes things as well.
Yeah, I could definitely see a Madden 365 though. You just subscribe and you just get the whole thing forever.
I don't know. I mean, my challenge with that is the economics of it. Like Madden sells consistently to those that invest heavily in the Ultimate Team stuff, but it also is. I would hazard a guess that it is one of those, like Call of Duty, that is a frequently gifted game. Like a family member knows they can pick up Madden and give it to another person for a gift, or that it is somebody who buys a box copy of something and doesn't necessarily spend their time looking at the weekly sales online and digital stuff. So whether or not they would hold on to those types of people is a question.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm sure there are people who buy it every year. Maybe not at full price, but definitely. And I'm sure there's also a demographic of people who plays. We always talk about the people who play Madden and Call of Duty. It wouldn't surprise me that there's a chunk of people who just play like Madden and FIFA. Or just like it seems like an EA Sports bundle subscription would be an effective thing.
I think you are probably right, especially if they're coming back with golf in 2023, right? We had that news story this week as well that golf, the PGA golf from EA is getting delayed until 2023.
And now you have Codemaster, so you could throw Formula One in there as well.
Yeah. Well, and I would also say that there's not a whole lot of other EA releases outside of sports games at this point within their catalog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you could in fact chunk in Mega Baseball now too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Super Mega Baseball's developers, that's there, and whatever game they end up working on, they certainly, the only sport that it leaves is basketball. And NBA Live, the last NBA Live one was 2019. This was on my list. I went back and played some 19. It's still kind of fun. It's definitely more arcadey. I played through some, I enjoyed it at the time. I have been playing NBA 2K since 19 as well. This year in 2K, it is a slow drip in terms of VC and, upgrading your player. It's definitely tiered to get you to spend more. That's where Live could have had a market in terms of something a little more approachable, something a little more arcadey. Live 20 was in development, and in the summer of 19, it got announced that it was going to be delayed, and then eventually it was delayed indefinitely, and we have not heard a whole lot more since then. At first, there were rumors around whether or not it was being delayed until the next-gen consoles, and now that we're on the next-gen consoles, we still have no live information. It also becomes a question of 2K is such a juggernaut right now that does it actually pull basketball fans away? Is it worth the development costs? Maybe if they end up bundling it with something like this, then it could be. I kind of think that they had a decent engine. It was more approachable. It was a little quicker. It was looser. It was more arcadey. It was more NBA Street. Like they could have done something like that, or they maybe come back to something like that, especially if they're going to have the Super Mega Baseball guys go in the direction of not being realistic as Super Mega Baseball has been. So we will see. But in terms of Madden, I think so much of it really is on economics in terms of how they continue forward. Tao, do you have something else to add before we move on?
Yeah, I was just to say, do you remember like where that switch happened, where 2K like became the juggernaut or started to become the juggernaut? Like what year? Like I for a while there, I wasn't like I buying at least one of them like almost every year, and then I kind of like I fell off, and then kind of came back when it was I was just buying 2K, but I just don't remember when that switch happened.
So from my memory and from I will say from the few from the YouTube videos that I watched on the treadmill this weekend to prep for this story, people point to 205 being kind of a peak for NBA Live. It was also, that was the same year or 204, 203, 205, 2K20, 2K5 was the year that they threw everything at $20, where NBA 2K, World Series Baseball, NFL 2K were all launched at $20. And then you had a couple years where it ended up, it was kind of just reskins. It really, where it collapsed is, and this is my memory as well, not just from what I kind of researched online, collapsed in the 360 transition. Like when they moved from PlayStation 2 to the 360, their engine wasn't as strong. They lost a ton of features upon release, and those features kind of slowly dripped back in. And at that point, this was also right around the time when Madden and EA had purchased exclusive rights to the NFL, and suddenly Visual Concepts as a studio had fewer games to develop for and had more resources to throw at NBA 2K because that was their big one at that time. Shortly thereafter, Visual Concepts, really started pairing back on the NHL 2K as well. I think the last one there was 11 or maybe 13. No, I think 11. 10, 11. Then baseball stopped around 11. And so really they've been nothing but focused on NBA 2K. And also at that same time, you had a series of events with live where you had a developer from NBA 2K come over to live, I think live 10, and do well. Live 10 was seen as kind of the best one on the 360 generation, but then the next year EA rebranded it to NBA Elite and eventually canceled it, and it's the same year that you had NBA 2K 11, which is really held up as a high point in that series that had Jordan on the cover, lots of historic stuff, and it was also kind of one of the last times before they really started diving into virtual currency and things like that.
When EA signed that exclusive deal also with the NFL, there was also a ton of anti-EA ill will at the time. Like, there were people who were diehard Madden fans, but it was almost, I don't want to say universal, but there were tons of people who felt like removing, dirty EA, buying the NFL license, removing that competition. People liked that there was the competition and that there were choices and options and that there was a perceived, I want to say that, there was a more diligent, advanced march of Madden because there was competition. And that after that, it was just kind of, EA got really conservative about, what those iterative changes needed to be from version to version because there was no other thing to compete with.
I would say that you have people in the 2K community who would argue the same thing at this point, that 2K is able to lean into the directions they have in microtransaction things to nth degrees because there is no other competition. That if you want to play basketball, this is your game. So yes, I agree with both of those statements that there was huge blowback. There's still fans of, what was the Visual Concepts 2008 game that was like the All-Pro 2008, which was like it had licensed the Retired Players Association so they could use the NFL engine that they had, but with all kinds of retired players. And there's people that have been updating those rosters online and using that, so there's still a fan base out there that believes that there were good things within that engine. So, all right. Competition drives creativity, which drives the marketplace. Last week, as we were thinking about the marketplace, we were talking about Fortnite removing the building mode, and Game Logic, you said, I bet it sticks around if the numbers and the economy around it doesn't collapse, and that they see enough player retention. And we do get a story this week that the no build mode is sticking around, and so it is Fortnite Zero Build is going to be here to stay as a selectable mode. Game Logic, you have Fortnite on your list of games that you played this week. Did you play the no build mode, or what mode were you playing?
Yeah, that's absolutely what I did. That was the whole reason I went back to it. As a streamer, it feels like there's almost a compulsion that you have to play Fortnite and it has to be in your playlist at some point. I never really felt necessarily, I never ascribed to that notion, but just out of curiosity, sort of in the same way that we approach Star Citizen, I felt like, look, if we're going to throw shade at Epic and Fortnite in the free-to-play model, as much as we did, that somebody owed it to kind of go undercover. And so I gave it a whirl, a year or so ago. I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing solos because of those requirements that I talked about that I needed in multiplayer PvP games, that I could queue solo and not be dependent upon, necessarily finding anybody. And so I played it pretty diligently for a few months, and then when more and more bots started being introduced and, when the player community started to fall off and the number of engagements per match started to go down. I just got disinterested in it and left. But I was one of those who always said, man, it would be really interesting if it didn't have any building. And so I came back to it and wanted to check it out. A couple things that I found were interesting. I think first, the truth of the matter is, I actually don't think it's a better game without the building. I feel like, as much as I groused about it, as much as many in the Fortnite community groused about it, it was actually one of those things that kind of differentiates it from, most other shooters and most other battle royale games. And while it creates that bothersome nit that, you could be a better shooter, but some guy could be, some guy or girl could be a better builder, and that could cause you to wind up losing a match. It does create a variance of the dynamic that, isn't replicated in other games. So, but the effect of removing the building has created this, vacuum effect where lots of people, I see friends of mine that I haven't seen, online and on Epic at all for the last, year, several months, and they're back, right, playing the game. And so it has created an influx of where it's brought players back. There are more people. There are fewer bots. There are more engagements. I had a match the other night. And unfortunately, I didn't win any matches. The best I could muster was like a 5th place finish. So I had a 5th place finish, a 6th place finish, and I think an 11th place finish. And then everything else was just a bunch of derp. But because half the time that I play the game, at least with solos, I'm trying out different tactics. I'm trying out things that I don't know that are going to work. And I'm like, if I get killed, then I'll just restart. So that was an interesting thing to find out. I did not expect that would have been my reaction. I think one of the most interesting things, because I've been engaged in a somewhat contested discussion about microtransactions over the last week. Really surprising to me, being Fortnite is the poster child of villainy for people who choose to cast the free-to-play model in that light. About microtransactions and again, that free-to-play model. If you go back to it now, and Tal, I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know how long this has been around, but that progression model is never thrown in your face. Like, it used to be whenever you finished a match, there would always be pops, right, as you hit the unlocks and progress through the battle pass. Now when you come out of a match, you earn a thing called battle stars, and they're just a number. So you typically get like 5. And I don't know if you get 5 every single match or if you get 5 every match that you perform above a certain level. I don't know. But
it's the challenges. When you do the challenges, that's when you get the battle stars.
Okay. So
the daily, weekly, and seasonal, they have all kinds of different challenges now. It's like blown up, the challenges, the way you get it. But yeah, and I guess the battle stars were a thing early on when they first started the battle pass. And then it went away for like the longest time. And now they brought them back these last, I think, 3 seasons.
Well, as far as I can tell, that is the entire progression model. Now, you come out of matches, so what you do get is you do see, you get an alert whenever you level up, but it is not in the center of your screen. It's off to the left, and like if you blink, you'll miss it. But then you get a certain, then after every match, you do get like that little scrolling wheel it's basically like a list of achievements. And you do get a little scroll bar that, shows on this progression timeline, what achievements you've hit for that match. But then you get given the battle stars. And unless you deliberately then take those battle stars and go to the item list, you'll never see your progression. Like I was 2.5 nights in, and then I was like, hey, wait a second, I haven't gotten any unlocks. Because I was so intent on just playing the game, right, and participating in the combat, and I was like, oh, I've earned like 15 battle stars. That's right. I have to go turn those in and go get a thing. So it was just very curious that, it's if the whole premise of the argument that goes around, Twitter and the internet at some points is that, microtransactions bad, pay full price for games good. It's very interesting that their design approach to it is just to basically completely shove that out of your face. and again, that's not even the microtransactions. That's just the temptation to do the microtransactions if you felt you needed to go to the item store and buy stuff, on top of whatever your unlocks were. So it's just a very interesting thing to see.
So you didn't buy the battle pass, did you, for this season?
I did.
Or you just
because
you did buy, okay.
Because like you, I played enough to just accumulate V-Bucks, and then I was like,
okay,
why would I not spend V-Bucks that are sitting there? Like I can't turn those V-Bucks in for real cash, right? And they're V-Bucks that I've earned just from game time. So like, why not turn them in for the battle pass?
Okay, I was just wondering because I was wondering on how the free tier works. Like if it's only certain things that unlock in the battle pass. Like before they actually had two. It was like there's a bar at the bottom of the screen, and there was two lines. Like you had the battle pass, and then you had the free tier. Now everything's kind of just thrown together. So I don't know how that works. Like I'm assuming. Like you get all different kind of things on each page of the battle pass, so like sprays and skins and all kinds. I'm assuming just like the sprays and maybe like a glider here or there. Maybe you get now on the free tier. So I didn't know how that worked. I was wondering if you had done that.
No, I'm not sure. And in fact, I mean, the impression just from what I've seen would cause me to believe that you don't get anything, but I don't know that that's the case. I just don't know where it would be presented because there's just one bar on that list of achievements screen. Right. And there's no above the line or below the line kind of stuff. And then you go, like I said, then you take your battle stars to the store. Now maybe, I don't know, maybe you accumulate battle stars like at a slower rate.
Maybe,
or maybe you only get them, every few challenges that you create or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's been interesting how the battle pass has evolved because, like I said, when I first started, it had those two bars, and you did get something unlocked every match. And now it seemed like every season they do something different, except for these last couple of seasons, and maybe even 3 seasons, where it has been the battle stars. They just kept that. I kind of like the old way, to be honest with you, because I don't know. It just kind of seems like I have to sit there and like accumulate those battle stars a good bit before I can actually use them. And then there's like a secondary like money system or like thing you can do for like each season it changes, but this season it's like the sword. You can buy different sword types of that one type of sword that you unlock, and like colors and even sounds and stuff like that. So they're kind of going into that area where they're throwing different kind of in-game money at you, so to speak. So it's a little weird.
I guess my thing is I just feel like, and again, this is spurred because I've been, hyper aware of these things, as this argument is spooled up. I guess my feeling is from the things that I play that, like from the things that I play that are seemingly heavy built on microtransactions, inclusion in the game, and I'd say that Fortnite, Destiny 2, they're included, and Call of Duty, of things that I've played and seen recently. I feel like of those, the only one that really puts that progression model in your face and makes you wonder or think about how quickly you're earning things is Call of Duty, because it's the only one that pops like in between matches. Like Fortnite's out of your windshield now. Destiny 2, that season pass tab, you don't see that unless you deliberately navigate to the far right end of the exploration UI, right, and see that. So, it's kind of, for people who are concerned that microtransactions rule the world and that they're constantly trying to get in your pocket. Again, I find its presentation in the UI and the presentation layer to be incredibly suppressed to the point where like you just don't see it unless you deliberately go looking for it.
All right, thanks. No, that's good. I think you're right in terms of it's interesting to see that evolution and how transparent, not even transparent, but how in your face or kind of it is there when you want to engage with it, or if it is kind of funneling you hard into it.
It's not like mobile where every time you complete a level, they put a pop-up over your screen that does not go away unless you interact with it that says, hey, you earned 10 stars. By the way, if you had paid blah, 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 you would have earned, 1,000.
Are you sure you don't want to miss this one-time offer? Watch an ad to get some double stars? All right. Anyhow, so speaking of increased costs, we have we're going to jump into the PlayStation Plus announcement here this week. I've been playing Kenna Bridge of Spirits on PlayStation 5. I think it's a beautiful game. I will talk more about it at some point in time as I keep making my way through it. But it is also something that definitely seems like it is a good candidate for PlayStation Plus and one of their tiers. So the announcement came out on Tuesday. This is coming in June, but we have the 3 rumored tiers from PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Spartacus, whatever it was being rumored as. But the initial tier, the $60 a year tier, is basically what PlayStation Plus is now in terms of 2 monthly downloadable games, discounts, cloud saves, online, multiplayer online. Then you get Extra, which is PlayStation Plus Extra, which is $100, so a $40 bump. It provides everything from the above tier and up to 400 PlayStation 4 and 5 back catalog and current games from first and third party studios. Then you get the final tier, which is premium, which is $120 a month. Again, the difference, the monthly charges at $18 a month for the premium one versus if you paid a year, it's $10 a month. There's significant differences over time. But so on the premium one, you get all the above tiers. So that standard PlayStation Plus, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, then up to 340. These numbers are so strange in this because there are numbers here without any titles, without any kind of hint of what those titles might be. But the 340 of PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, and PSP generation games. And not surprisingly, because of the wonderful PlayStation 3 architecture, that they are going to be streaming only on PlayStation 3, while on PS1, PS2, and PSP, you can also download those. Some of the questions around this are those going to be also available for sale individually? None of that has been answered. The expectation is probably not. The one thing that Jim Ryan did answer is that we are not getting our day and date first party Sony titles, that is not the way their ecosystem works and their development model works. So those will not be in there, but we do have some announcements of games like God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales. They give us a taste of some of those, but we don't necessarily get, they talk about Death Stranding, Mortal Kombat 11, and Returnal. And that's all they've told us so far. So again, it's not until June. So potentially we hear some more information. The one piece before I turn it over to your guys' thoughts in terms of how this plays out value-wise. On Game Industry Biz, they talked looking at kind of adoption rates on things, and they talk about that PlayStation Plus, the current model of PlayStation Plus, has somewhere around a 72 install base in terms of subscribers of those that own PlayStation consoles. About 72% of them are there, versus PlayStation Now, which only has about a 5% adoption rate. So one of the things they talked about in terms of the analysis is that they don't necessarily have to convert a huge number of those 72% of people that have PlayStation Plus currently, but any type of conversion, bringing up above the PlayStation Now, people that jump onto the premium model is above and beyond the 5% that are already where they're at. So it does add some value potentially with the additional platforms. They're looking at potentially the analysis here on the article. Michael Goodman talks about that 40% is their benchmark, what they hope to get to with the extra and the premium. But even if they, hit 20%, that is a really good conversion rate and brings a lot of additional revenue in for Sony. So that framing, I think, was helpful to me as I think about this, because it is not trying to be a Game Pass competitor. It is its own kind of, it's taking itself down a different track, and I probably will find myself subscribing to it at some point in time, and maybe, but I can't see that it would be in this type of model. I also don't see that it would be difficult to make use of it over the course of a year, unless you were only playing on PlayStation. It's hard to know what those games are going to be, but if you are a single console person, this does add a ton of stuff. Chances are, if you're a single console person, some people also probably have a previous PlayStation generation. So how much of this is value added, it will be interesting to have that discussion again on this show. I'm sure we will, as more information comes out. Game Logic, Tao, any thoughts on this announcement? Not a whole lot of surprises, or were there some that kind of caught you off guard or got you scratching your head on things?
I think the only really surprise for me is that they have the actual PSP games in there. I didn't expect them to do that, which is kind of interesting that they put that on there. And then the other thing is, for the streaming, you can, besides the PS4 and PS5, you can actually use PC to do that. That would actually be kind of attractive to me if that was. Oh, I guess they have PS4 games on there, but if I guess I was going to say PS4, PS5, but they do have PS4 games on there. So on that premium tiers, and there's a lot of games like the first party games I've never played because I never had anything past the PS2. So I mean, it's I don't know. I'm probably not still going to get it because I already have Ultimate Game Pass, and and I have Nintendo, which is not super expensive, even though I do have the expansion pack. But I mean, add in a third one on here on top of all my TV streaming services, which I have at least 3 of right now that I can think of, possibly actually a fourth. It's not like a big one. It just probably would be too much for me, at least right now. Maybe I could do like a monthly or quarterly one. Maybe that's an option if they do that. And I know they break it down here. And I don't know if well, I guess Xbox does it kind of like that too. They do monthly in like 3 months. So I guess it's kind of the same thing. So that might be kind of an option for me too. And hopefully at some point they would add like the PS5 games too, so I can play some of those games. I thought I had another thought, but I don't know. Game Logic, any thoughts?
No, I think before I just was I hadn't thought about that. Like people that are in your boat that don't have a PlayStation, that this gives them, and you can play PlayStation Now currently on PC, but this kind of bundles a lot more with it. So that could be an avenue for people, or for people like Game Logic that no longer have any console at all.
Objection. I would direct the jury to not pay attention to that testimony. That is stricken from the record. Because the thing is that streaming to PC is only available at the premium tier. And so what you're going to wind up doing is you're going to wind up paying the highest monthly price so that basically you can subsidize the PlayStation players for the content that they can receive when you can only receive it via streaming. I mean, the service isn't for me. I don't have a problem with Sony's strategic approach to this. But to have pulled me over the wall, it would have had to have been downloadable, available on PC. And it really would have had to be day and date. There's a ton of technical reasons why that's not feasible. I have spent a full day defending Jim Ryan and the Sony Corporation on Twitter. So this is not about me disliking Sony. Because I defended the decisions that they made, with the rigor of the most elite pony yesterday, and so. But that's what I think would be the problem. I mean, it's just this is a service for people who are already in the PlayStation ecosystem or joining it because it's not financially desirable for anybody who just would want to access. I mean, that's always been the allure, that PlayStation would do something that would be attractive to people who are on PC who could also participate in their system. But I don't think that this is it. I mean, you could do it, but you would just be paying the same money as a PlayStation user who's getting a ton more stuff, than you are. So it'll be interesting,
Yeah.
see where it goes from here.
So let's move on to another subscription that got announced this week. Last week I was talking about GTA Online. Rockstar announces GTA Plus. So this is their subscription, $5.99 for some shark bucks for 500,000 into your account, along with the ability to claim special properties and get weapons and vehicles that are only available here or that have been available in previous releases. Member-only discounts. Again, not for me. I think that the looking at the comments online about this, the amount of money is not statistically significant because of how much you can earn when you are a high-end player. But if you are a high-end player, the pieces that are probably more significant for you are all the special things and weapon skins and are cars and vehicles that you might have missed out on at some point in time. But yes, if no matter what you play, somebody is willing to take your money. That is for sure. So
One more.
I want to wrap up here with a little bit of Halo and Master Chief and a little bit of one final news story to wrap up as well. So, Tao, you've been playing some Halo Master Chief Collection with your family?
Yes. Yeah, so last weekend we actually played, I think it was like every day, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was me, my son, and my wife. We were playing Master Chief Collection. Just the original Halo, Halo CE, I think is what they have on there. And just doing like multiplayer, just like deathmatch, not even team deathmatch because there's only 3 of us, unfortunately. So it's fun. Like we've done this before in the past, and it was just interesting that we played all night, like every night. Like first night it was my son, I think, wanted to play. And then my wife wanted to play the next night, so I think she was having fun with it. And then we just kind of all were like, "Yeah, let's play again." The Sunday night. So it was fun times. So we Sunday night I actually had tried to go into the remaster of Halo 2. Neither of them like that. I think it was a little bit too modern for them. They kind of like that older, the first Halo maps, and some of actually all those maps on Halo 2 were like 4 to 8 or 4 to 8 players and above. So those are larger maps, and it was just since there's 3 of us, we don't want to be sitting running around for 2-3 minutes like not seeing anybody. So we had to go back to the old one. So but yeah, no, it's something that we break out every couple months or so, and play. And I'm gonna try to see. I think with maybe 2, maybe 3, where you can have more than just 2 people playing through the story. So maybe we'll try to do that one day too. So see if I can get them to do that.
Game Logic, did you play some Halo Infinite? It looked like that was in your rotation.
No, that was I think that was a typo where it got copied and pasted from what's
excellent.
next.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, let's wrap up with one final news story from Activision Blizzard now that they are potentially pending under the Microsoft family, that the settlement that was the settlement that was reached back in September in terms of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission against Activision Blizzard. This was an $18 million settlement, has finally cleared and is being finalized. So this was, we talked about this plenty last year. Activision Blizzard made our scum, hive of villainy in our superlative show. It was our unanimous pick in terms of that wretched hive of scum and villainy. And so that this is getting back to that this has been finalized, which means that money actually might start moving to the people who were in the lawsuit as well. So, gentlemen, before we wrap up, we've got to talk about our next Pix Plays assignment. So we've been talking a little bit about cloud streaming tonight with both Azure and AWS. We talked about the Kim Swift announcement in terms of starting up a gaming development team there within xCloud. So our next assignment here is to grab on, play a little bit of a streaming service, whether it's xCloud, Stadia, Luna, GeForce Now, whichever service you want to jump into, but to play a game or a couple games, give the experience a go, and let's talk about it. Potentially, if you're going to play some multiplayer, see what that looks like. Game Logic, I know you've played some Destiny on Stadia before. So I've played some Luna. Tao, you've already talked about that you're going to be looking at playing some more xCloud and go back to Origami, potentially some Outriders. I think I might dip back into Cyberpunk now that I looked it up, and Cyberpunk, the Stadia version of Cyberpunk, also got the same updates during the most recent patches that came out last month in terms of their 1.5 or whatever that update was that did a significant number of updates. So maybe I'll give that a go as well.
Are you still subscribed to Stadia?
No.
Right.
Nope. I think I did 1 month. And are you still subscribed to Stadia?
I am, but I'm about to bring that to a close. That and my Apple Arcade subscription.
Yeah. Apple Arcade, I just kind of dip in and out of every once in a while when it's good for summertime road trip type of thing. So, all right, everybody. Lots of show, lots of good talk. We always have more games that we did not get a chance to get to, but that's why you keep coming back. That's why we keep coming back, is because there's always more to play, always more to talk about. Gentlemen, I always appreciate being able to have this conversation with you, both in terms of kind of picking apart and dissecting the industry, but also just sharing our game experiences as well. So any other wrap-ups, any other final thoughts, announcements from anybody? Seeing some head shakes. For those of you in the audio version, everybody's shaking their head. So we are ready to head out. Thank you for joining us. Hope you come back again. We are here every week on the Enough to Keep Going podcast. Thursday evenings, usually about this time, trying to give you a good segment to listen to no matter what you're doing. So for myself, DBQ Hams, Game Logic, Towmaster99, play the games you love those you play with, and take care. Good night, everybody.